The TC America, powered by Skip Barber Racing School season, roars into its final 2 races at the world-famous Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The TCX Championship battle is done and dusted, but titles remain up for grabs in the TC and TCA classes, and the fight for the race win figures to be equally fierce. Hello and welcome to the corner of 16th and Georgetown in Speedway City, Indiana, the racing capital of the world. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside, and Amanda Busick joins us from the pit lane. Just 2 races left, one today, one tomorrow for TC America, and 2 championships that can still be settled. The TC battle, it's certainly more one-sided, but TCA very, very close, Calvin, with 3 drivers within 13.5 points.
Yeah, both those championships are up for grab, and when you look at the grid, there's certainly some cars that are in that championship fight, very much out of position on a racetrack where it races really well. Should be some fireworks here this afternoon. Excited
to see what we have in store. Standing down amidst this field of touring cars, we have our own Amanda Busick. Amanda, what's the update from the pits?
Well, Cal, is a racetrack that races very well, and it is a racetrack that is still drying out from weather here in Indianapolis this morning. But you talk about those points battles, specifically here in the TC class. You're looking at the car of Eric Powell. Eric comes in as the points leader. Points-wise, he could mathematically clinch it here today, but you have to remember Austin Smith, the guy right behind him, is coming off of an impressive drive in Sebring. So this one is the one that I'm keeping my eyes on. Will Eric Powell clinch in race number 1 here in Indy? Well, that will be up to him.
He's got a nice, healthy lead, that's for sure, and Austin Smith finds himself in a position that he's not unfamiliar with, Calvin. He knows he needs to go out and put up a big result. That's been his mentality, really, since the halfway mark this season.
He had to. He had such a hole in the points, and then he just went on a tear. He's had 5 wins on the championship season, and as Amanda alluded to, coming off a big weekend at Sebring, where he swept the weekend.
Here is a look at the points as they stand entering the final 2 races of the season. In the TC class, Eric Powell with 191.5, that 29.5 point lead over Austin Smith. Kevin Boehm also mathematically in the hunt, but has some work to do, 3 points further behind Austin Smith at this stage. 50 total points are on offer across the 2 races this weekend. 25 points for a win, 2 races. That gives you those 50 points. But this is that really close battle in TCA, Calvin. Look at that top 3 all together as they have been all season, and it's been a season of twists and turns. There's not been a championship favorite in TCA.
There hasn't, and the top 3 in the points are together on the grid. They line up 3rd through 5th, so lots to play for here this afternoon, and a racetrack, as Amanda alluded to as well. It's wet, it's drying out rapidly. If we don't see any more rain, it could be almost a dry line by the end of this race. So who's got the advantage? Front-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive in a lot of these touring cars will be certainly a factor here this afternoon.
No question about that. There is, of course, the chance for potentially some more pop-up showers before the day is all done. We'll have to see just how that affects us. But looking at the track here, Calvin, do you have a sense for whether or not wet or dry tires are the way to go as we look at the layout here at Indy?
Well, I think maybe you got to gamble towards dry tires. The track should be drying out. We see a dry line already kind of evolving out there as we speak. And looking at this racetrack, you can see a couple of very long straightaways down the front stretch here at Indy, going in the reverse direction to the Indy 500. Then that middle sector there, Sector 2 begins with that long run down Holman Boulevard. So down into Turn 1, down into Turn 7, the primer were taking opportunities. Lots of twists and turns. You really need the car to be changing direction very well. And I don't think tire degradation will be a factor unless you're on a more treaded tire and it does start to dry out. Will there be a crossover period?
You'll notice as well, if you watch the TC America races from IMS last year, this is a slightly different track configuration using that loop, turns 5, 6, and 6A, instead of the chicane there at the back part of the opening sector of the lap. That is something that the drivers of the rear-wheel drive cars, Calvin, earlier in the weekend, they were telling me this is great news for us. The front-wheel drive cars are going to put a lot of strain on those front tires going through the high, long-duration, high-speed corners there, 5, 6, and 6A, while also trying to apply the power.
Yeah, but the opposite is in effect in terms of wet conditions, because you have the weight over the front driving wheels versus the rear-wheel drive cars, which are light in the back as you're trying to put the power down. So there could be a crossover where the front-wheel drive cars are very strong in these early conditions, and then if it does dry out to the point that, you know, you're getting good traction and good bite off the corners, then the rear-wheel drive cars could come to the fore.
Haven't talked much about the TCX class. That's the 4 BMWs at the front of the field that accelerated away from this group. That's because of the pole sitter, Jacob Ruud. He is already the champion-elect. Got that box checked 2 weeks ago at Sebring down in Florida. He starts on pole for not the first time, it's safe to say, this season. He's been the dominant force in the class. Steve Strymer starts alongside in the front row, and Olivia Askew and Roy Block make up the rest of the TCX field. It's been a fun year. We've seen some newcomers popping in and out. A huge expectation of growth in the TCX class looking ahead to next season, and it seems like the future is really bright for this class of car.
Very much so. One particular team is saying they could have between 4 and 6 entries alone in this class for next year. So it's evolved this year. Certainly has got a lot of eyeballs on it. And we talk about TCX. There's actually a good little battle, even though Ruud has kind of dominated the championship with 8 wins and has sealed the title. Big battle for second. Steve Strymer only has a 4-point lead over Roy Block here, with obviously today and tomorrow still to run.
How important are these formation laps, especially in conditions like this, wet but drying, as a driver, to try and get a sense for what kind of grip will be available to you when we go green? Very important.
Really important to know when you get into that opening lap, first turn, what sort of grip you're going to have available. Look pretty dry down the front stretch, but coming down Holman Boulevard seems to be a lot more water, a lot more spray kind of coming up from the tires right now.
It is a very flat surface, the bit of banking on the oval portions of the track notwithstanding, and some thoughts about what the level of drainage was going to be. That's been at the forefront of the thought process for a lot of teams across multiple series here this weekend in the event of some heavy rainfall. And we have had a few heavy bursts of rain throughout the course of the day today, but as you can see right now, the rain has subsided. It's been that way for some 45 minutes at this stage. Now it's just a matter of drying this track out, and we'll see that dry line forming as the race progresses.
The word is that this racetrack has pretty good grip in the wet, but then takes a long time to dry completely out, so we'll have to wait and see. And you'd have to believe that Jacob Ruud there has got wet weather tires on, because he's running down in the puddles just to try and keep them cool. And I'd suspect that the car on the dry line is maybe not in the same boat, so no pun intended.
And that would be Steve Strymer, who's set to start on the outside of the front row. Let's run through the starting grid. Ruud and Strymer on the front row overall, top 2 in TCX. The next 2 in the TCX field, Olivia Askew will start 3rd, Roy Block starts in 4th. That brings us then to the TC field, where Nicholas Barbato, in his debut in the series, put his Gin Racer Hyundai on pole. He'll have the Mini of Derek Jones alongside. Then it's championship contender in TC, Kevin Bohm, starting 3rd with Mike Lamara to his flank. Row number 6 overall, row 3 of the TC field. Jeff Rika, the sister car to the pole sitter, will start in 5th. Championship leader Eric Powell alongside in 6th. Austin Smith, another championship contender, starts just behind in 7th with Tom Capizzi alongside. Rob Hines and Matt Ibrahim are the next row of the grid, and the final row for TC, Ken Fukuda and Chris Valdez, starting back in 17th and 18th overall, respectively. To the TCA field, Clayton Williams on pole in the Mini. That will be the yellow Mini. There are 2 in the field in the TCA class this weekend. Jose Blanco alongside in a Honda. Carter Fartug, one of the championship contenders, one of the 3 in the mix in TCA, starts alongside fellow championship contender Caleb Bacon and his teammate Luke Rumberg, 1 row behind with the other Mini of Christian Pericarpi. Then Mike Stillwagon and Sally McNulty in a couple of Hondas. Devin Anderson and Colin Harrison in a Toyota and a Honda respectively. Mario Bundo and Taylor Hagler making her TC America debut for the season, driving a brand new Hyundai TCA car we'll talk more about later. Finally, PJ Gronke at the back of the field did not set a representative lap time in qualifying. We'll look to see him move forward in his Tech Sport Racing entry. Here comes the field now. Looks like the Lamborghini Urus safety car has started to pull away. We'll have 3 distinct starts for the 3 separate classes. TCX will come through first, then TC, then TCA. This is the section in Oval 1 and 2, turn 12 of this road course configuration, leading into this, turn number 13. Then one last right-hander to go that leads you up onto the front straightaway at Indy and towards the famous Yard of Bricks. Jacob Rude, the college student from Wisconsin, champion-elect in TCX. Starting to the left of the screen on pole, Steve Strymer alongside Olivia Askew and Roy Block making up the second row as we look for the green flag to get the penultimate round of the championship underway, and it flies. Decent start from Rude, but Strymer accelerating away nicely in that dry line, quite possibly on the dry tires, and it will be 2 by 2 into turn 1.
Olivia Askew looking down to the inside. That's treacherous territory there with a damp racetrack.
First time TC America starter Nick Barbato gets a nice jump from the pole. Derek Jones slots in line, but 3 and 4 abreast. A little bit further back. Jones taking a peek to the outside in a bid for the lead. Kevin Bohm runs third in the gray and red Honda. Looking to the inside of the Mini of Jones. He slots up alongside and they make contact. The Mini goes around and collects one of the Gin Racer Hyundais.
Wow, big contact there. Typically with those front-wheel drive cars, they can almost pull out of a slide, but there's just too much yaw in the car sideways there to try and pull it back together.
And the TCA field will be roaring right into that mess here before much longer. That's a big deal, though, because that's one of the 3 championship contenders that was involved in that collision. This car right there, the Honda of Kevin Bohm. We'll wait and see what the stewards think of that as we drop back to the TCA field.
Everyone's settling in just at speed now, trying to feel out this racetrack. Again, looks like they're gripping quite well. Don't see much slipping and sliding just yet.
Rough start for the pole-sitting Mini. Already dropped back, it looks like 5 spots quite possibly. Clayton Williams, that's Jeff Rika out of his car as we go safety car at IMS for the first time. Disgusted Jeff Rika surveying the damage.
Nowhere to go. Once the Mini got turned there, he just plowed into the side of him. That's a shame. Rika comes into this round of the championship, P4 in the points, only a half a point spread between he and Rob Hines. That was going to be a tasty little battle to look forward to, but it's done early.
Really nice jump on the start in the TCA battle for Jose Blanco, who has taken the lead of that class. Let's look at the replay, Calvin.
Yeah, and the inevitable, really, when you're down to the inside and the Mini really came across, they didn't really leave that lane for Kevin Bohm to try and somehow get through the apex. So I'd look at that as a racing incident. Yes, there was a car went around, there's another car involved, but I think the 60 car there could have given this a little bit more room there of Derek Jones to that inside lane. You just got to think about the big picture there. Everyone's trying to survive as that funnels down into that apex, and trying to cut across and go for the line is really not going to work.
Well, the funnel aspect to it, I think, is the crucial one. The front straightaway is relatively wide. Certainly the entry to turn 1 is much wider than it is at apex, and you're coming down off the banking, everything condenses together, and if you've ever watched racing on this road circuit before, turn 1, lap 1 incidents are by no means a rare occurrence.
This is a gut punch for someone like Jeff Rika. He puts so much effort into his racing, and to come here to Indy is a special event, a special race. It's the end of the season, certainly, but just to race on this circuit and be here is something that you really look forward to when you look at the calendar for the full season. To see that car off on the sidelines this early is a major disappointment.
Jeff, a race winner in TC earlier this season, winning overall, as a matter of fact, at COTA in mixed conditions. Had 3 other podiums in class over the course of the year, but a rough weekend at Sebring with a 10th and a 9th, and a difficult start to the weekend here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Field behind the safety car. Good start there from Jacob Rude, and Olivia Askew did make a nice move. Strymer started on the outside of the front row, dropped back to 4th, and Olivia is now up into 2nd.
Yeah, she's a fierce competitor. I mean, we've seen her a lot over the last couple of years. Doesn't have a ton of racing behind her. Did a bunch of testing before she entered pro races, but she has Brian Sellers, who's her coach and mentor, so a lot of good advice there on the headsets.
Let's get an update while we're under safety car conditions from Amanda down in the pits.
Well, as we were kicking off this race, I was actually talking to David Askew about Olivia's plans next year. She is going to race a full season. She has finished school, so she's ready to pursue this full time. He said that she's really had some growth effort in going from a front-wheel drive car to rear-wheel drive here with that BMW, but the dad has big plans for his daughter. TCX full season next year, hopefully graduating to a GT4 car and then ultimately GT3.
Well, she's tested the GT3 car from DXDT Racing. I know they did that down in Sebring earlier this year, back in the spring before the season started, and That was kind of just to whet the appetite and see what kind of interest there was on her end. We've seen her running partial calendars in the past, and like you say, she's impressed every time we've seen her.
She's not afraid to get her elbows out and dust it up a little bit, so that's what I like. She's got impressive pace, and it seems like suddenly she'll just switch on, and she gets that groove, gets that confidence, gets the balance in the race car that she likes, and boy, can she make some impressive lap times.
Heard Amanda reference finishing up at school. She was a mathematics student at the University of Utah. That's where the Askew family hails from. That's where DXDT Racing used to be based, although they've since moved out to North Carolina. And I should mention, while this car has some DXDT logos on it, it's being run by classic BMW, so it's not exactly under the DXDT Racing stable. Unlike this car, that's Kevin Boehm that we're looking at right there, currently in second place in the TC field, and it looks like a good start from Austin Smith. He was able to jump up to third there, and what's crucial is the championship leader, Eric Powell, has dropped back to 10th overall, but crucially 6th in class, Calvin. Has a big lead still, a nice bit of padding to work with over the last 2 races of the season, but it won't make him feel any better to see 2 of his championship rivals out in front.
No, and I think he was pretty close to that incident down in turn 1 as well, so luckily he escaped that. But it's kind of got into his head a little bit, I think, with Eric in terms of the pace of Smith over recent rounds, and the BMW certainly being very strong. So he comes into this weekend 29.5 points to the good. Anything can happen, but I think you just got to really focus on the big picture, not get too carried away about your closest challenger having a fast race car at this stage of the year, and just focus on the prize ahead and the goals ahead is to minimize the damage. Even if Smith is running in front of you, be as close as you can so that you could maybe seal the title like Amanda alluded to earlier today, or at least be in great shape going into tomorrow.
Well, think about how different this weekend could have looked if not for the great effort from the Skip Barber Racing School team 2 weeks ago at Sebring. The initial car had a crash, was too damaged to run in the first race of the weekend. Meanwhile, Kevin Boehm went out and finished second. Austin Smith had that great run and the race win in race 1, all while Powell was on the sidelines. He was able to step into a team car for race 2 and raced his way towards the front and was able to salvage good points. Meanwhile, Boehm had some misfortune in that race, had a broken suspension piece that caused him to fail to score points. So it was very much a weekend that could have gone off the deep end, and instead Eric Powell kept himself not just in the lead, but with a sizable cushion coming into these final 2 laps.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about when you're in the championship picture. It's all about damage limitation. Here we see the start once again. Boehm down to the inside, turns the Mini. Look at Eric Powell. He's right in the middle of this. And look how close he is. He has to take to the grass, misses the Mini. And that's our championship leader looking at that big trophy right in front of him in terms of, oh boy, if I hit this Mini, it could be day done.
And that had to be a scary moment for Eric to see the Mini sitting sideways directly in front of him, and he took the route through the grass, which was certainly the safer route, and lives to fight another day. Looks like the safety crew should be about done with this cleanup, and we're getting close potentially to a restart here. This has cost us about 10 minutes of racing time, but the safety car is off. Jacob Rude has control of the field. The classes are separating themselves out as we come back to the green flag here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Jacob Rude accelerates away.
Controlled that really nicely. Roy Block was certainly looking to try and get a run there in the black BMW. Screen right as we look at them all approaching turn 1 again. Block looks down to the inside of Strymer. Can he make it stick? That's going to be tight. He has to give it up. Here comes that Hyundai leading the TC class. Boehm having a big day. He needs this to get back into the championship picture. That's the number 9 Honda right there.
And he got balked, did Barbado, the leader in TCA, by Roy Block. That's forced him to be aggressive because Boehm is working to the outside, trying to challenge for the class lead. And Calvin, we saw this at COTA in the mixed conditions, the front-wheel drive TC cars. That's the package to have relative to the TCX rear-wheel drive machines. Big slide from Barbado, nearly goes off track, does drop a wheel in the grass, but keeps it on line.
Wow, that was nice car control there. Big moment indeed, but Kevin Boehm, big opening restart lap here. Coming into this championship picture, 3rd in the points, needs a big day, and right now he's got the lead.
Barbado, a former GT Academy contestant, and has won championships in time attack and time trials type competition. But first wheel-to-wheel racing at this level, it's happening right now, and there are a lot of lessons to be learned.
Yeah, he's just running a little bit too wide there. Got kind of not forced on the grass, but had to run that wide line through there. But you're right, with these front-wheel drive machines, they should really perform really well with that weight over the front driving tires and get the power down a little bit better than the rear-wheel drive BMWs.
Rude leads from Askew overall, but then we get into this mixed class duel. TCX and TC cars mixing it up here towards the front of the field.
It's coming down into turn 12. Little switch back here as you set up for 13, and then the important one is 14 onto this front straightaway.
Eric Powell, the championship leader, who avoided disaster. Turn 1, lap 1, working his way around the TCX car of Roy Block and onto the front straightaway.
You can see the grip there, even in the wet, the car's really gripping well, and then the horsepower is going to come into effect there. A 50 horsepower difference, 50 to 80 horsepower difference between these TC and TCX machines. Little twitch there, down into the brake zone.
And this is big here for Powell. He needs to move forward. The two chasing him in the points. They now run 1-2 in the TC class, and 3rd and 4th overall. Powell has about 3 or 4 cars between himself and those two. Not all of them are in class, but all of them are obstacles to trying to pad that points lead.
Yeah, and this will increase the stress factor a little bit, certainly. I'm sure he's got all the computations going through his head right now in terms of the points as they run. The good news is Bowman's ahead of Smith. He doesn't want Smith grabbing another full point score of 25.
There we go in the TCA field, and a number of different cars mixing it up here. Rob Hines is in the yellow car who just dropped behind. That's a rear-wheel drive car, so the fight for the lead in TCA here between Blanco, and then you throw in a Ford Busch Performance car, the Skip Barber Racing School, 3 different makes at the front of this field.
And Bacon's not having a great day. He's towards the back of the pack, so this is big championship implications in TCA with Rumberg and Fartuk having strong days.
Rumberg looking out around the outside of Jose Blanco, the open-wheel exile in his first year of touring car racing. He holds the lead right now after a great qualifying performance that saw him start on the outside of the front row in class, but he has 2 of the top drivers in this championship breathing down his neck. Luke Rumberg right behind, and Carter Fartuk, an interested spectator, not too far behind.
Big run there by the Hyundai. Looks to the outside as they now set up for turn 12. Once again, pretty dry into the brake zone there. Rumberg very much in this championship picture with his teammate not having a great day so far.
And surprising to see Caleb Bacon so far down the running order. We'll hope to get an update on that as Rumberg gets the run out of turn 14. Blanco going defensive early down the front straightaway. Looked like Rumberg has the run, and look at that, just muscles right on by.
Yeah, he has the power there, so that's where that Hyundai is really strong. Now he gets back over on that inside lane, trying to keep those tires nice and cool there, then spread back over on the dry line to get that optimum turn in.
Rumberg had a couple of podiums at Sebring, while both Fartuk and Bacon had some issues during those races there. That's allowed him right back into the championship picture. Bacon a long ways back now.
Doesn't seem to have any power.
Yeah.
I mean, that Hyundai should be stronger than that Honda down this front stretch, and he was just sitting there.
Looks like some messages coming in from race control. Drive-through penalty issued to car 09 for making a pass.
That's Bowen, right?
Before the line on the restart, you're right.
So not only did he have that contact, he's not getting called for that, but breaking out of line. I mean, you're allowed to pass before the stripe on the initial start, but not on any subsequent restart.
And this car here, this is the Mini that was involved in that. This has been assessed a stop and hold plus 30 for incident responsibility. That message just came in from race control. There's also some concern from the team that the intercooler might have been damaged, so there might be more to this than a simple stop and go penalty, but a tough day for the Mini team as far as their TC car is concerned.
Yeah, you can see a lot of front right damage on that machine, so what was promising day is not looking so good now for the Mini team, but here's Jacob Rude looking for his 9th win on the championship season. Big gap there back to Olivia, who's having a really strong run.
Looking right at home, isn't she? She was very opportunistic at the start, able to jump up a spot from third on that opening lap before the full course yellow came out. And on that last lap, ran her best lap of the race, but no one matching the pace of Jacob Rude. He just set the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race that last time around.
Yeah, about a second clear of Olivia, but that's still a really solid run for her in these tricky conditions. Just identifying the threshold and the amount of grip that you got to work with. But as we said before, this racetrack seems to give good grip in these wet conditions, but also takes a long, long time to really thoroughly dry out and drain.
Wanted to make a quick clarification. This is the 9 car. It was the 09 car that was assessed the penalty. That's Chris Valdez, who was running further down the order. So Kevin Bohm not involved in that penalty assessment from race control, and right now running at the front of the TC field with Austin Smith in hot pursuit right behind. These two have been running nearly identical lap times over the course of the last 2 tours of this racetrack.
And Powell down in 5th, so could be a big delta in terms of the points, but he's still okay. A couple of top 5 finishes would still seal the title for him.
He has been able to clear Roy Block's TCX car, so that's the first step. Now this is a fight for 4th position in TC with Tom Capizzi. Every position so valuable when fighting for a championship late in the year, Cal.
Yeah, and as we saw earlier, Capizzi's car does seem to be a little bit stronger down the straightaway, even though it's running in the same class, of course. So that's all about, you know, horses for courses. That Honda's a really great handling car. BMW seems to have the legs on Powell. I think that's what got him frustrated about Austin Smith's charge in the championship right now aboard one of these BMWs. He really feels that he doesn't have a car to fight for the big wins right now, but when you've got a big lead, you just got to focus on different things.
This is important track time for Tom Capizzi because he's not just involved in this championship, but he'll be on track right at the conclusion of this race with the Pirelli GT4 America race that he also competes in. It'll be his co-driver, John Capestro-Dubets, who should be starting that race, but he should be able to transfer some good information about track conditions to help them and that Auto Technic team prepare for that race. As here comes Roy Block back to the inside. That's not a class battle, and that's not what Eric Powell wanted to see.
No, not a great dynamic there with a much faster TCX car getting the horsepower down the straightaway and taking it to good effect down to the inside, but then he's on the wet part of the racetrack, and that's exactly where Eric Powell's car should be a little bit stronger.
An update on the championship leader in TCA with Amanda.
Well, this one's actually pretty interesting. I've never heard this one before, but there is a random misfire happening on this car. So Caleb is actually turning the car on and off to get it to reset itself. The car's acting fine at the moment, but you take a look at the last lap times. Carter had that 2:03, besting the others in points by almost 2 seconds.
Wow, how frustrating for the championship leader to deal with a misfire here, and that has him way back in the pack. But that's some pretty quick thinking to do that full reset, and hopefully it's just an electronic issue that can be rectified by the little Control-Alt-Delete.
Yes, so what he really needs, he needs a reset. He needs a yellow to come out and get the safety car out there, bring him back to the pack. He's not going to catch the front-running cars, so damage limitations, not the day he was looking for with the championship very much on the line.
The car to watch right now is this gray and yellow Mini of Clay Williams, the pole sitter in class that that dropped back right there at the start. And looking at the line, I wonder if perhaps he elected to start this on dry tires. Nevertheless, this car has been coming on strong. He's driven back through the field, and right now is putting some pressure on Jose Blanco for 2nd place in TC.
Yeah, and that's not what Rumberg wants to hear, who has the lead right now, trying to hang on to his championship aspirations. 13.5 points behind his teammate, but he could be almost with him by the end of the day, the way they run right now.
Williams looking for a way around the Honda of Blanco. 2 very different race cars in a lot of respects, but so tight together as we approach the halfway mark of race 1 of the weekend in Indy.
Here comes Williams with a big run. Who's going to have the horsepower advantage? Really tight. They're almost touching halfway down the stretch. They cross the yard of bricks. Mini, he's being forced down on that damp line. I think it's Blanco trying to force him there, keep him there so that Blanco can break on the drier part of the racetrack. And then you see him take it in a little bit deeper. good strategy call there from him in terms of placement of the race car.
And Carter Fartuk right behind. He just was passed a few laps ago by Williams in this Mini. He runs 4th in TCA, not where he'd like to be with the championship up for grabs. Williams this season has not run a full campaign, but when we have seen him, he's been fast. A couple of podiums going back to Sonoma. There was one at Elkhart Lake as well. Was not racing in the last round at Sebring. We saw Christian Pericarpi really impress in this car there, and that earned Christian another couple of races. He was only promised 2 by his proud dad, Louis Pericarpi, the team owner, but it went so well. He's in the field here, currently running a few positions further back in the 6th spot, but Williams with a great run out onto Holman Boulevard was able to power by Blanco. That moves him up into 2nd in class.
Oh, look at Blanco, takes it in super deep there, almost runs over the top of the Mini there. He's waiting for the 62 car to get turned in for turn 7. His car is really handling well, but certainly he's on the back foot a little bit in terms of horsepower.
Look at Victor Gonzales there to the left of the screen, team owner for Jose Blanco, VGMC Motorsports. This is a team that debuted a few years ago. Just Victor, his friend and partner in the team, Mariano Cruz, and that was it. And a car on an open trailer that they had driven all the way out to Sonoma from Florida, and they showed up and ran towards the front, and they've really turned that into a huge program with a lot of support from Honda to help bring along drivers, especially from the Latin American regions.
Yeah, it's really a cool story to see that team evolve over the last 3 seasons from where they started to running a multi-car organization right now. So hats off to them, but their passion was always there. They just didn't have the resources available to them. So great to see them getting some support.
Look at the strength of this Mini team. Here's Christian Pericarpi with a great drive down the front straightaway, pulls up alongside Carter Fartuk. Not sure he's going to be able to complete the move, but a very similar look there from what we saw from his teammate just a few moments ago.
Yeah, the Minis are looking good, even though it's a very short wheelbase car. I wouldn't think that would be good in these conditions. It seems to be very effective. Here's Powell.
He's past Capizzi.
That's big.
Yes.
Up to 4th, so damage limitation. That'll be a 12-point gain for him on the day compared to the Chasers. Bohm leads still. So Bohm will gain 13 points, but he's a long way back still. So Powell's still in great shape. It's certainly going to make him sweat overnight. And
his next target will be the pole sitter, Nicholas Barbado, who runs 3rd in class, 5th overall. Powell 4th in class, but 7th overall. It is Roy Block's TCX car now splitting the 2 of them, and it seems like as this track dries out, as expected, the strength of those TCX cars is starting to come to bear.
Yeah, big horsepower, but obviously a lot of horsepower to get to the ground. Rear-wheel drive cars with the BMW platform, of course. So a little bit tricky in the opening laps, even though Jacob Ruud has certainly taken off from everyone here today.
No change at the very front. It's still Jacob Ruud leading Olivia Askew. 10.8 seconds the gap there. Bohm, the leader in TC, runs 3rd overall and has Austin Smith now 4 seconds behind him. And Bohm on that last lap pulled out nearly a full second of an advantage over Smith. So it seems like the drawing track is coming to Kevin Bohm and maybe away from Smith somewhat.
Barbado was almost a second quicker than the leader, so he's still got a lot of pace in that machine as he's trying to find his stride a little bit from the pole position.
And he has caught Smith, so they are within a half a second of one another. That fight should be well and truly on. I think we just saw it leaving the picture there in turn 6 and 6A. This different portion of the IMS road course than we saw 1 year ago. This was in use when Formula One raced here with the U.S. Grand Prix, but has not really been utilized a whole lot since.
Comes Lamara, big run. The LA Honda World. Honda gets around Capizzi there. That is for position. That is for P5.
And although the team is called LA Honda World and represents a dealership in Los Angeles, the team is actually based in Brownsburg, Indiana, just down the road from here. It's the same team that runs the Minis, as a matter of fact, LAP Motorsports.
Here's Rumberg once again, our TCA leader, trying to hang on for all he can right now. He knows there's such a delta in the points between 1st and 2nd of 7 points. It is massive when you're looking at the championship spread here coming into this penultimate round.
Clay Williams on slicks. We are getting that confirmation. It looked like both of the minis in TCA elected to do that, and that explains why we saw the pole sitter, Williams, slip back as much as we did at the start of the race. But now the track's starting to dry out, coming to him a little bit, and he has run down the class leader in TCA, excuse me.
When you're running on the wet weather tires, there's just a lot more rubber, a lot more in the block of the tread, and it tends to move around. It gives it a little squirming effect when you're in the brake zone or heavy loading through the corners, and then it's just going to start to overheat as this track dries out a little bit more. So Rumberg should be backing up with still 15 minutes to go in this race, but he's trying to hang on here. And we know that the Hyundai is very potent down the straightaway, as is the Mini, but I think Rumberg may be able to hold on to this lead when they get to the brake zone for turn 1.
Coming up onto the banking, once again we see the Hyundai dive down to the inside, trying to find the moisture to keep the wet tires cool. You don't have to worry about that on the slicks. Here comes Clay Williams around the outside. He's never won a TC America race, but challenging for the race lead with 14.5 minutes to go.
Rumberg doing the right thing, though. He kind of drifts back up. He's entitled to do that. Has to give the Mini the lane, so it's going to be tight. They're both pretty evenly matched there in the straightaway. Horsepower stakes, but this is where the Mini should be a little bit quicker when we get to the drier portions of this racetrack in terms of carving these corners.
This team, LAP Motorsports, that runs the Minis, they picked up some extra support for this event. This car, this yellow car, with some support from a Mini dealership up in the Chicago area. Christian Perocarpi's car, that's got some sponsorship help from Dreyer and Reinbold Mini here at Indianapolis, a program that's been involved in IndyCar racing in the past, and they're putting on a show here, certainly going a long way to justifying some of that extra investment. Here he comes to the outside, Clay Williams down Holman Boulevard, trying to make it work around the outside.
He is. And Rumberg can't get back over. He's wide, gets in there too deep, gets the big plow, big understeer, and the Mini goes through.
Clay Williams to the point with 13.5 minutes to go. This is an LAP Motorsports team with some crew that comes from Mini dealerships, but many of the crew members have IndyCar experience. Louis Pericarpi helps to run IndyCar teams often at the Indianapolis 500, and to win here on home soil would mean a great deal to that entire operation. They now lead the TCA field.
Yeah, and for Rumberg, he did all he could there, so now he's just got to try and solidify that second position on the road right now, but not the point spread he was looking for over his teammate in the championship standings.
This is not a fight for class position. Second place in TC is Austin Smith. That's the blue BMW in the center of the picture. Just behind is Roy Block, who runs third in TCX. That's a car that is finding more and more pace as the track dries out. He was running behind Eric Powell not so long ago, but has made that pass and moved forward. But we're getting a report that there might be some more moisture in the air as Block takes a peek to the inside.
Well, I could reverse everything as 51 car is wide. Smith there just making a little error into the brake zone for turn 7. Just asked too much of those front tires, just as we saw from Rumberg there. So critical error to make that slip. As we said, it wasn't for class position. He's got to be careful. Got to keep on the island here to try and get those points in the bag.
That brings Mike Labarra, who runs fourth in TC, just that little bit closer. It brings Eric Powell a little bit closer as well. Bohm leading from Barbado, who has gotten around Smith, as a matter of fact, so that's a swap for second. Happened a couple of laps ago. And then Smith in third, but here we have Powell trying to recover from the near disaster at the start. Runs 9th overall and 5th in class.
Yeah, and I saw him in the paddock this morning. He said they made a little mistake with their setup in qualifying for the wet conditions. So he said, now I'm buried in the danger zone. And that was exactly that when they got to that first turn with the contact between Boehm and the Mini. Sitting here in 5th. He's going to lose 15 points to Kevin Boehm if Boehm brings it home here today. And Boehm started the day 32.5 points behind. So if you can't pace today's result to tomorrow, that would be just enough, but it's getting squeaky tight.
Talked to Eric a little bit at Sebring, and this is before it all went sideways for him there, where he had to miss the first race of the weekend. And he entered that race with a nice, comfortable margin in the points, but he refused to look at it that way. He knows how quickly things can change in motorsports. And Eric Powell right now trying to recover after struggles in qualifying and the near miss at the start of the race. Let's go down to the pits and Amanda.
Well, I think you're going to see these claps come by as the minis pass here at the start-finish. And Lewis, this is a home race for you guys. Why is that added pressure here this weekend?
It's Indy, baby. It's Indy. It's our home track. You know, we were really good here. We were last year, too. We got two young guns. My son's back in the car again. I think he's battling for second place right now. We have a few minutes left. Yeah, I mean, it can't get any better. We just got to bring him home now.
Every time your son comes around, you're giving a fist pump in the air. What's it like watching him cross here at the Brickyard?
Well, first of all, everybody was debating if it's either Reigns or Slicks, and we were one of the few teams that went on Slicks, and I told my son, listen, the same thing I told him in Sebring. You've been dreaming. You've done this in your dreams a million times. This is your chance. Just don't make a mistake. Stay on the racetrack. It's going to come to us, and so far it is. So we'll see what happens.
Meanwhile, a scary moment there for Jose Blanco, who went for a spin. We saw that on the screens. He had dropped back to 5th. Now the damage flapping from behind that car, trying to recover after doing the 360.
A little bit of help from Mario Biondo there. So kind of got turned there. He got the chrome horn, I feel. So there may be some communication between those two after the checkered flag here this afternoon.
Those two are teammates as well. An interesting conversation.
He was picking up the tab at dinner.
Exactly so. Kevin Anderson in this Toyota for Tech Sport Racing, number 22, we're looking at here. What a breakout weekend it was for him at Sebring. The emotion in victory lane when he got that first win. That was a huge deal. Devin Anderson, excuse me, son of Kevin.
That was so cool. Just so much effort. We talk about kind of the grassroots aspect of racing with some of these TCA and TC classes, and to fight so hard to get the opportunity to be a driver and then get that breakthrough win. I mean, he was just ecstatic, rightfully so. And to do it with his family-run operation, even more special for him, I would imagine.
Definitely. Currently now into the 6th position after the problems from Jose Blanco that we chronicled a few moments ago. It's still Rude from Askew at the front of the field. Bohm leads Barbado, but that lead is down to 1.4 seconds. And that could have championship implications as we look at the overall leader. This is the 81 of Rude with Carter Fartug running towards the front of the TCA battle, not too far behind. Although he's actually dropped down to 7th now in TCA.
Talk about that TC battle for the lead. Barbado took a second and a half, maybe nearly 2 seconds there out of that lead for Kevin Bohm. So Barbado, our pole sitter, is coming alive here in the late going.
It's been impressive stuff. Making his first ever start, we have a steward's decision on the contact between Biondo and Blanco. Incident responsibility assigned to Biondo, the car number 77, who has been handed a drive-through penalty.
I think the first bump was okay, but kind of the second one sealed the deal on that one.
Down to the final 7 minutes. There are battles all throughout this field. Strymer has gotten around Smith. Again, that's not a class battle, but it is a TCX car now, another one between Smith and the top 3 in TC, and Eric Powell is doing everything in his power to try and run him down. Now, this is further back than we would have expected this to be. I think that was PJ Gronke in strife on the side of the screen, but these are two championship contenders in TCA, and they're running further back with Fartuk right now out ahead of Caleb Bacon.
Yeah, I think Anderson was there stranded off the side of the road, so we just seen him running, so it had to be a recent occurrence. And yeah, certainly Fartuk, who was running up there in the top 3 or 4, is backed up to Caleb Bacon, who seems to have gotten around his technical issues with the race car, and there you can see the gap, so he's gotten around Fartuk and taken off a little bit. Fartuk coming into this round of the championship, and he had some drama in recent rounds. He came into this race 5.5 points behind and was looking great to cut into that, and now his day has turned around in the wrong direction.
He's another one, kind of like Austin Smith at the midpoint of the season. It didn't look like it was going to happen for him, and then he rattled off 3 consecutive wins, 2 in a row at Elkhart Lake and then 1 at Watkins Glen. That brought him right back into the championship picture. It's been a bit of a struggle since then, not classified in the second race at Watkins. Finished 5th in both of the races at Sebring, but still was within 5.5 points of Bacon entering this round. Doesn't look like everything is all right with that race car, Cal.
No, it's definitely sliding around a lot, so maybe he's overheated the wet weather tires potentially. Maybe he went even softer with the suspension settings. You can kind of soften off the sway bars and stuff, which gives you a lot of platform in the drive, but when you soften them off or disconnect them, certainly make it roll around as the track dries out, not ideal.
Taylor Hagler running this car, the Hyundai Elantra Inline, a brand new car to the championship. Let's learn more about it and about Taylor with Amanda.
Well, and they're using this weekend as an exhibition for this car, but more importantly for Taylor, she's using this as just more lap time, as she's also going to race here this weekend in the 8-hour. And we think of all of the pressure that an 8-hour race brings. I think it's rather brilliant of Taylor to use as much track time as she can here this weekend.
And gets to be reunited with the Brian Herta Auto Sport team that she races with in a different touring car championship, helping them with the development of this brand new race car.
More seat time, but a very different race car, right? A lot less horsepower, front-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive. So seat time is seat time, track time is track time, but it's going to be a big adjustment hit for her when she switches back to that GT3 machine.
TC battle for the lead. Kevin Bohm sliding his Honda Civic all over this racetrack, and he's got the pole sitter in class, Nick Barbado, right behind him.
He's got to do everything he can. He's got to get his elbows out if necessary. He needs the maximum point score here.
Sounds like he started on the rain tires, did Kevin Bohm, and there might not be much left on these Pirelli P0s. As the track dries out, it puts a ton of stress on a wet weather tire.
Looks like the car's got good balance, maybe a little bit loose, but he's kind of drifting through these corners with good effect. But these last couple of laps are going to be crucial for him to try and hang on to.
The report from the Gen Racer camp is that Barbado also is on rain tires, but that car looks a lot more steady underneath him. Down to the final 3.5 minutes. Huge championship implications here. Barbado trying to win on debut, and Bohm trying to claw into the points deficit.
You sometimes get this at the end of a championship season. One of the championship contenders suddenly going up against someone who's got no skin in the game. Barbado just wants the glory, and he wants the points, and he wants the win.
Tons of opposite lock for Kevin Bohm. You can see the red gloves moving around on the steering wheel through the window. Woo! Now he's got lap traffic to deal with too.
It was like a Scandinavian flick that he's using there to get that car through these corners. The nice thing is if you're sliding the rear end like that, you're not taking tread off the driving wheels, which are the front wheel drives in that Honda, so maybe he likes this balance.
Barbado comes from a time trials background, so you would think this mixed class racing might benefit the more experienced racer in Kevin Bohm, but Barbado is hanging right with him.
Well, he's just got to hope that Barbado uses his head here because he can't afford to get taken out.
Powell still runs 5th in class, Smith still runs in 4th, so if Bohm can hang on, he would be the big gainer in the championship. But it goes without saying, Barbado wants that race win on debut.
He's pushing him. Kevin's going to have to use every ounce of his experience. Multiple national champion in SCCA competition, coming off a TCA class and championship win last year. But he's got to dig deep here with just 2 minutes to go.
Working through the lap traffic. Does the out-of-class Honda help out the TC Honda a little bit? And yes, I don't think that was intentional, but the way that, or the location in which they caught the traffic, that certainly gives Bohm a bit of a breather.
Yeah, he'll be loving that. Now he hugs that inside line right up by the wall there where the drainage is not so good.
And Steve Strymer is coming through. That is 3rd place in TCX. Now runs between the top 2 in TC. And don't forget about Mike Lamara. Here he comes to the inside.
This is great for Bohm. Just really taking the pressure off. That's really hurting Barbado here.
Lamara in the number 37 LA Honda World Car. He's 3rd in the TC class, and while those two were battling out amongst themselves, he's run them down.
These cars have about a lap and a half to go. I believe the TCX leader and overall leader, Jacob Ruud, should be getting the white flag next time by the stripe.
Great stuff here in the TC field as the rain starts to come once again. Is any tread left on these tires that have been run through the ringer throughout the course of Nearly 40 minutes of racing. Bohm sliding on the run out onto Holman Boulevard, exiting turn 6A. This is a good place for Strymer to catch him. He should just accelerate by with the extra horsepower of the TCX class. Lamara has made the pass. Now, does he help his fellow Honda runner?
Well, that's a key. Certainly for Bohm, he needs Strymer just to get going as Jacob Ruud comes out. Be one more lap to go for him, and now the rest of this field. So Lamara's car is a totally different balance to Bohm. You see Bohm sliding around, big oversteer on that car. Now Lamara's right with him with a car that seems to have a lot better balance.
Coming around to take the white flag in just a few corners time. This is the dive of turn number 12 back into the infield, then the left-hander, turn 13. Bohm forced to go defensive. There are no manufacturer orders on display here. Lamara seeking the race win.
He's going for it, and I believe his car is stronger right now. Bohm trying to hang on there. Lamara just takes that outside line, and he's got the lead.
Mike Lamara powers by. Kevin Bohm demoted to second. He'll still make up some ground in the championship, but not nearly as much as Lamara goes through. It's been a frustrating year for Mike, just a single podium entering this. Bohm is desperate though, throws it up the inside, gets up alongside under braking.
That was awesome stuff. That is putting it on the line with the championship in his sights, looking for it. It's a huge difference. Right now it's only an 8-point swing to Eric Powell. If he gets the lead back, it would be 15.
And Barbado still could steal this spot away. It's not done yet for Kevin Bohm, who runs second. Mike Lamara has accelerated away and has a solid lead now in the TC class. TCA is still led by Clay Williams, and his mini teammate Christian Pericarpi is now through to second.
Yeah, I wonder if Lamara is on slick tires. His car looks so strong in comparison to what should be almost an identical Honda right now of Bohm.
Down Holman Boulevard for the final time. Lamara to the left of the screen. He's already coming through. Now it's Bohm, then Barbado, a couple of runners we know to be on the wet tires. But up at the front across the yard of bricks, yet another race win for the champion-elect. Victory for Jacob Ruud at Indy.
Kind of icing on the cake for that championship season to come to Indianapolis, grab your 9th win. How are these final podium positions going to factor here with Kevin Bohm trying to hang on?
Big slide from Barbado. He too just trying to hang on, making that run through turn 11 for the final time up into the south short chute of the oval. Flicking it to the inside, here comes Bohm, wrangling that race car, trying to keep Barbado at bay. Up ahead, Mike Lamara appears en route to his first win of the season in the TC class for LA Honda World, located just down the road in Brownsburg. Here comes Mike Lamara, victory number 1 of the season, and it happens at Indianapolis. Just behind, Kevin Bohm will hold on for second over Nick Barbado, who scores a podium in his series debut.
All in all, it's going to be a pretty good day for Eric Powell, our championship leader. Damage limitation.
How about this? Could it be another win for the LAP Motorsports camp? They run the LA Honda World team, they run the mini JCW team as well, and it's left to those two to fight for the TCA class lead. Pole sitter Clayton Williams has it. Newcomer Christian Pericarpi in just his 3rd start, looking for his first win.
Does he make the big move as his dad and team owner looks on? Possibility, make a move to the inside here. Can he make it stick? Doesn't go for it
enough. Yes, Clayton Williams dives back inside to the infield in turn 12. Christian Pericarpi right in the tire tracks, nursing a little bit of damage to the left side of that race car. But it's not going to be enough. Through turn 14 for the final time, it will be Clayton Williams with his first career win in TC America and a 1-2 for the mini JCW team here at Indianapolis.
What a race. That was a roller coaster ride of emotions and positions all day long.
Wow, final 20 minutes were wild. The checkered flag has flown for the second to last time this season, and provisionally these are the results. Jacob Ruud wins yet again by nearly 40 seconds over Steve Strymer. So something must have happened to Olivia Askew. She slid back there and ultimately finished 3rd in class, but 4th overall. Split by the TC class winner, Mike Lamara, breaking through for his first win of the season. Long awaited and well deserved.
Perfectly judged, perfectly timed. It could have just been different condition of the tires there at the end, but they certainly timed that to perfection to grab that big win. Caleb Bacon there, nice recovery with those technical issues early, gets ahead of Carter Fartuk, who was closest to the championship lead coming in. But his teammate Rumberg 3 positions ahead is going to make it really tight between those two going into the final round tomorrow, Ryan.
Rumberg, third in class, ultimately closes in even further. He's the driver in TCA with the momentum. CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race went to Steve Strymer, who we speculated might have started on slicks, and that could explain his charge through the field, ultimately coming home second overall as well as in the TCX class, and picks up the extra honors of setting the fastest lap of the race. And it's not just honors, because in TC America, fastest race lap sets the grid for race 2 of the weekend tomorrow.
Pole position at Indy, leading the field tomorrow. Wow, there's certainly some calculations going to be going through those championship leaders to head tonight in terms of exactly what they need to do tomorrow. It's going to be very tight in TCA. Powell will still have a healthy lead in TC, but still has work to do.
We'll be hearing from our winners here shortly. What a special thing it is to pull into victory lane at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Doesn't matter what direction you're going on the track, doesn't matter what car you're driving. You can feel the history as you walk into this place, especially in Victory Circle. There's Jacob Rude, who adds to that win total. You are number 1, sir. I think that is correct with the way this season has played out. Cal, we didn't know much about him when the year started at Sonoma, but he has announced his presence in a big way.
He has had a difficult weekend at Sebring, the last event on our calendar, but still hung on there for a couple of nice podium runs. But this is what he wanted to do, go out on a high. You have such a big year, you don't want to suddenly go out with a whimper, and he's doing it on the biggest stage.
9th win of the season, started the year with 6 consecutive within the TCX class. 5 of those were overall wins. What a year it's been for Jacob Rude, who had only made a handful of starts prior to this season in touring cars, and looks right at home behind the wheel of one of these BMW M2 CS Cup cars, which, again, we talked about it earlier. They are in high demand. We're going to be seeing a lot of these before too much longer.
Mara is chuffed. That was a big, big run for him. Awesome drive.
Yeah, it's been a frustrating season, I think it's safe to say, for Mike. Brighton, Michigan native, 53-year-old who's done a lot of touring car racing over the years, a former champion in another touring car series going back to 2013. Has run all kinds of different cars and is hooked up with this team by virtue of the fact he's run the minis before. And again, it is the same operation behind those 2 programs, although they're run separate of one another. But a lot of the brain trust is the same across the 2 programs. Big win for him. He came into the weekend 7th in points, not thinking championship, and in some ways it makes it simple. Just go out and win.
It does, and if there was a gamble on the tires, you're more willing to do it than maybe some of the championship contenders.
Let's hear from Jacob Rude, who wins overall for the 8th time and 9th win in class this year.
Well, with that 9th win, it comes here right at Indianapolis for the first time in competitive racing for Jacob Rude. When you describe this season for yourself, what would you say?
It's a really hard question, honestly. I mean, I think it's just persistence and taking the time to, learn this car. I mean, it's been a new thing for everybody this year, so I think this season kind of everybody was figuring it out, trying to get up to speed, and, we got ahead early, which I think was a great advantage to us, but just keeping the pressure on and trying to make sure that we, bring the car home in one piece, albeit a little bit dirty, I think, after this run, but, just it's been a fantastic season. I want to thank everybody at Fast Track Racing, Lightspeed Racing, Delta Hawk Engines. I mean, it's just been a fantastic season. I'm happy to be a part of it. So, thank you.
With all the craziness going on, we didn't get a chance to make reference to the fact that this has been run under the classic BMW name all season long, and for points purposes, that's still how it's on the entry list. But that dealership has been purchased, and the racing operation underneath classic BMW has always been Fast Track Racing. It's kind of how they're planning to brand this program moving forward. A lot of changes happening behind the scenes for this Texas-based team that's involved not just in touring cars, but in GT4 America also. And sounds like they've got some big plans for next year. And just because the name is changing and some of the ownership is changing doesn't mean they're going anywhere anytime soon. Back down to Victory Circle and Amanda.
Well, it's only one podium heading into the weekend for Mike Lamara. Picks up the win here right at hallowed grounds of Indianapolis. When you get your first win on the season, how much sweeter is it that it's right here in the motorsports capital?
Oh, it's fantastic. Actually, this is the second race I've won here in sports car racing, so it's a real special place, obviously. It's really the tire. I was praying a lot before this. What tire do I go on? I said, I'm going to take a risk, and I'm going to go on these slicks, and hopefully I can go from last to first. And so I was really pleased with that, and it was fun.
A risk that picks up the win here for you.
Now, I have to imagine those final few moments before the race where you have to make that choice. What tires do we go with? Those are as stressful as any that you encounter during the race itself, most likely.
They really are, and you have to feel sorry almost for Kevin Boehm. He drove the perfect race. He started on the wet weather tires, aggressive at the start, got away with that little bump there, but then took his car to the front, did everything he could, but you can't resist a challenge like that when a car is so much quicker on those slick tires.
So here's a look at the point standings now that it's over for the day in TC. Well, we'll get a full look at those down the road, but at any rate, it definitely does close in to some degree. Boehm doing nearly everything he needed to do. He just needed the race to end one lap sooner.
That's right, but he's still within a shout, so Eric Powell will not sleep easy tonight. He's got to come back tomorrow and probably score at least a top 5 finish, and that TC field is very competitive here this weekend. Should be a dry day, so it should make the tire choice a little bit easier for everyone going in.
And as has been the case all season long, what a topsy-turvy day in TCA. Let's hear from the man who came out on top, Clayton Williams.
Well, if you see this, Clay is already standing on the yard of bricks here right in front of the pagoda. And Clay, you pick up your first win ever right here in Indianapolis, the home track for your team. What will you remember about this drive today?
Oh man, I'll never forget this drive. It was amazing, you know, having fallen back all the way there from the beginning. Everyone else was on reins, and just coming back, you know, with the slicks was just amazing. I couldn't be more happy for the mini JCW team and everyone that helped me get here.
Well, I hate to put you on the spots here, but you are standing on the bricks. Have you kissed them yet?
I haven't yet.
All right, here you go.
One more time, Clay.
One more?
One more, says Louis Ferracarpi in the background. That is a special feeling to get to kiss those bricks as a race winner at
You've
the
done that,
Indianapolis
Ryan?
Motor Speedway. I have, at a very amateur level, but yes. And it was a memorable moment, to say the least.
Cool
Let's
stuff.
take a look at highlights from the race today. There's the green flag that got us started. The 4-car TCX field headed down to turn number 1. Then the TCA field comes through. Calvin, this is when it got interesting.
Yeah, looking at the front there, that was with the TC battle that we had some contact with Kevin Bones. We see the TCA field trying to make their way through. His Bones move down to the inside, gets into the side of the 60 car, turns him around. Jeff Ricker, nowhere to go. Big damage. He has to retire immediately. And then Boehm on the charge here. Cuts through and grabs the lead from our pole sitter.
Doing everything he could do to try and hang on to that top spot, working through traffic. Further back, the TCA battle was fierce. Jose Blanco had a great run early, but it seemed like that car went away from him as the track dried out. Yeah,
and Rumberg there did a really nice job again. He's still in the championship picture with his teammate, but he had to give up some position. A little bit of a bump and run here with Biondo. There's the 99 around, and this is the big moment for Mike Lamara on those slick tires, getting that run on Kevin Boehm.
Went around the outside and never looked back, but Boehm made him work for it. Took a peek up the inside, maybe more than a peek. That was forceful, but Lamara had the answers up front. Rude wins for the 9th time on the season. Lamara gets the win in TC and across the stripe, across the yard of bricks. 2nd place, good enough to stay in the championship mix for Kevin Boehm, and a 1-2 for the LAP Motorsports mini JCW team that is headed up by Louis Ferracarpi. One more race to go. 2 championships still up for grabs when we return for the 2nd and final race of the weekend, the final race of the season for TC America, powered by the Skip Barber Racing School tomorrow.